Thanks, Sharon. I'm really excited that Blake Butler has joined us today. I've had the pleasure of working with Blake the last few years at the Red Cross and getting to know him and his many talents. But the one thing I just learned over lunch that wasn't in your description of Blake Butler is he went to Florida State, walked on campus and didn't know a soul his very first day there. And as we've laughed and joked, we've said that's probably been a problem for him because he's shy. I just thought that was a fun little tidbit to share. Blake and his business partner Jill Lieberman currently have Adapt PR, and they are terrific and incredibly knowledgeable about the field of public relations, but also how it intersects with our world of fundraising. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Blake. Please continue to eat your lunch while he speaks as well.
Thanks so much, folks. It's great to be here. I just told my wife, Spencer Butler, who's here, she just couldn't get enough of me at home. She said, I gotta come see you speak at lunch, Blake. I gotta come. But I just told her I recognize so many names from emails, and I'm finally seeing your faces. And it feels good to be in the room with fellow professionals, and also in the room with people that have heard no more than yes in their life. And I think we share that characteristic. Because before I went into public relations, I was all about fundraising, all about development. My first job was on Capitol Hill with Senator Terry Sanford. And he let me work on a Senate commission called the 21st Century Commission on African American Males. And I was challenged to figure out how to raise money for a public-private Senate commission, and I was only 21 years old. But as we all know, when you're up against the ropes and you're looking for the right story, the right angle, the right message, you can be at your best. That job on Capitol Hill shaped me to the point that I was able to move down to Raleigh and become the finance director for the North Carolina Democratic Party. Folks, fortunately and unfortunately, I've done events in all 100 counties. Fish fries, chicken pools, all sorts of things. And Spencer's been to a lot of them because we were dating during that time. But the reason I mention this, and there's so many folks that know exactly what I'm talking about, that when I embraced what I enjoyed the most, I was on top of my game. And what I enjoyed the most is getting rejected. Because when I got rejected, I could fine-tune what it was that I was doing wrong. Was it the approach? Was it me? Was it the donor? Was it the cause? But more importantly, how do I get to a yes? So, as I talk today about the relationship between public relations and fundraising, please know that they're intertwined in such a way sometimes it's hard to put your finger on it. And I have so many wonderful examples. We could be here till 5 p.m. But it's the holidays, so I'll cut that part short. And let's talk about a couple that really we're all familiar with. Think back to July 2014. Chris Kennedy, a golfer in Sarasota, Florida, was challenged to the Ice Bucket Challenge by one of his friends. Now, one of his friends picked an organization that was helping a child that had cancer locally. But Chris Kennedy, on the other hand, chose ALS because his wife's cousin, her husband, Anthony, had had ALS for 11 years. So Chris chose ALS and dumped a bucket of ice water on his head July the 15th. What happened then is pretty incredible, because that's the first time this Ice Bucket Challenge and ALS were ever linked together. After his wife's cousin posted her video on Facebook, it started making the rounds. It hit a young man with ALS in Yonkers, New York, that was friends with Pete Frates. You probably heard about him, a former Boston College baseball player that was friends with all sorts of athletes. Because of ALS, he's not able to use his arms, his legs. He has a feeding tube. But the Ice Bucket Challenge became known as Pete's Challenge immediately, and it spread across the nation. So folks, we gotta wonder, How in the world did that happen when it wasn't planned? And why did it mean something to so many people? Well, let me give you the results first. The Ice Bucket Challenge in that 13-month period raised $115 million. But the most important thing, and you guys will understand this, that it raised an additional $13 million for those regional organizations that educate about ALS. The national ALS got plenty of funds, but to think that people associated that down to their local and regional level, that's public relations. The public's relationship with ALS changed with the Ice Bucket Challenge. And people began to give to something they didn't know that much about, but they just saw one of their friends dump ice on their head, and everybody was on the same level. Whether it was Michael Jordan doing it, whether it was me doing it, we were all on the same level, the Ice Bucket Challenge. Amazingly enough, when the ALS Foundation stands back and looks at it, they couldn't have planned something so wonderful, so viral, that would bring attention to what they care the most about. Fast forward to last Sunday night. How many of you watched the NFL? Anybody? Okay. The Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Giants. Big division game. As my wife knows, I was glued to the TV. And the reason it was big for the Dallas Cowboys is Ezekiel Elliott, the rookie running back, had the opportunity to set the rookie running back record. 13 touchdowns in a season. So the team knew it was going to happen. The crowd knew it was going to happen. And they're all anticipating that it would happen at some point during the game. And for those of you that had seen this clip, I encourage you to look it up this afternoon because it's really a wonderful thing. So sure enough, Ezekiel Elliott ran his 2-yard touchdown, and the place went crazy. And he ran into the end zone and jumped into the Salvation Army's big red kettle. It's at the end of the end zone. There was one on one side and one on the other. So Ezekiel Elliott jumps in there and ducks down and then ducks back up. So immediately they said to the Dallas Cowboys, you got a 15-yard penalty, and the NFL sent word that we're going to fine Ezekiel Elliott for doing this. Afterwards, everybody wondered, is this planned? Is this something the Salvation Army, called Ezekiel Elliott about and says, can you do this for us to bring attention? Well, I can tell you this, immediately after he did it, they had a savvy social media professional that tweeted, let's see, it said, Zeke made an important contribution at the Dallas Cowboys tonight. Can you contribute to the millions in need? Love the Salvation Army. But after the game, Zeke said, look, the bucket is just sitting right there in the end zone, so it's only right that someone jumps in it. In the aftermath, the NFL decided not to fine Ezekiel Elliott anything. You probably saw the penalty was $12,145. Ezekiel Elliott immediately came out with a statement that said, I'll donate that money to the Salvation Army if I get fined. And the NFL decided not to fine him at all. And what has Ezekiel Elliott done? He's given $22,000 to the Salvation Army. He's got the Dallas Cowboys online to give an additional $15,000. And their donations have gone up 61% in 8 days. Natural, organic, unplanned. These are things that if you tried to plan them and the word got out that it was staged, your donations might move in the opposite direction. It wasn't genuine. It wasn't authentic. It didn't feel right. So as you try to make that connection when you're out there soliciting folks and soliciting donors, just remember there's already a perception about your organization with the public. And it's important to identify what they already think and what they already know. It can help you fine-tune the message of how you take the next step. Amazingly enough, a lot of the contributions to the Salvation Army were in the increment of $21 Ezekiel Elliott's number. Why is that? Because people deep down still believe that the Dallas Cowboys are America's team. I'm serious about this. And America's team got associated with the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army benefited. Mark my words, you'll probably see Zeke as a spokesman for the Salvation Army next year. But remember that as those kettles sat at the end zone, no one would have given any more unless he did something unpredictable and organic. And now it's going to help millions and millions of people that otherwise might not have been able to grasp those funds so quickly. And it happened quickly. So as we look at these examples, these are obvious examples how, an organic event can turn into a wonderful public relations opportunity. But what do you do the other 99% of the time? Because you got to figure out how to build goodwill among your stakeholders and build up a positive vibe among those people that are considering supporting you and have already supported you. I believe it's all about people with personality. I do, and that's what we do in public relations. When we work with a company or an organization, we'll find some individuals inside that company with a little bit of personality, and we'll put them out front for messaging. Let me give you an example. One of our clients is Vaya Health. Is anybody familiar with Vaya Health? It used to be Smoky Mountain. Just went through a huge rebranding. And they provide services in mental health, disability, others in 23 western counties. A great organization. And they manage these other partner organizations throughout the western part of the state. You probably have seen this challenge called 22 for 22. And this is a push-up challenge that was started by some U.S. veterans, bringing attention that 22 U.S. military veterans commit suicide every day from PTSD and other just problems coming back from battle, coming back from service. Whatever it might be, we have an issue that these veterans aren't getting the help they need. So what we talked Vaya into doing is really looking at that single shot issue, even though they handle a variety of issues, and becoming a champion for that voice and further that campaign. They had 28 U.S. military veterans that work inside Vaya Health. So we formed Vaya Vets. And they all started doing the 22 for 22 challenge. Well, that wasn't good enough for us. So what we did is we talked them into making the CEO do 22 push-ups on top of the conference room table during a meeting. It's been the most popular video on Vaya Health's Facebook of all times. The contributions to what they are doing as far as the conduit to those organizations are up 20%. Their 800 hotline right now for suicide is getting more calls than ever before, because we formed a campaign called Know the Signs. Know the signs during the holidays to help your loved ones, and it looks like they're depressed. They might be suicidal. If you have a U.S. military veteran in your family, know the signs. But as soon as that CEO did those 22 push-ups, everything changed, because he was down on everyone else's level. It humanized him to a point that it became great PR for Vaya Health. And it had so much more to do than what Vaya Health does on a daily basis. The outreach and the people that are engaged now in the 22 for 22 that were birthed from Vaya Health, it's amazing. And why? Because we all know a U.S. military veteran. We didn't all know somebody with ALS when we took the Ice Bucket Challenge. But at the same time, it felt good. It felt right. And that's what I encourage you all to find in development, in solicitation. People with personalities are your best assets. They really are. I never knew Amanda Edwards ran like I did. I'm a trail runner. I run races when I was working with her till much later. And I saw that picture on Facebook and I said, Amanda, you run too? So I saw her differently. Even though I knew her capacity at the American Red Cross, all of a sudden I associated myself with Amanda differently. As she was running the Red Cross, I could also see her running races that benefited Manna Food Bank. I see the leader differently. I see the relationship she has with the public beyond the American Red Cross, and I like that. So your best assets can be in your president, be in your board. Some of them might not like it, but they can carry the message and bring it down to everyone's level. And when you do that, it becomes public relations. Changing the way the public sees your brand, sees your company, sees your cause. The last example I want to give you, and then we can open it up and we can talk a little bit. I told Amanda I was going to keep it short and sweet, but at the same time I enjoy the back and forth. About 2.5 years ago, a young man came to me and said, "Blake, we need your help. We are trying to legalize industrial hemp in North Carolina for a group of farmers that want to start growing it for pharmaceutical purposes. And NC State is very interested in becoming the research partner to study it for future generations." I immediately said, I don't know anything about industrial hemp at all. I mean, my dad's family was farmers in Rutherford County. My mom's family worked in textile mills in Rutherford County. My grandfather was in the textile division in the U.S. Army. But I didn't know anything about industrial hemp. In the last 2.5 years, with all the work I've done in industrial hemp, I finally realized what I was doing. I was trying to bring back hope to Western North Carolina, the area that I cared the most about. And for me, you know, good PR works in all capacities. And people have come up to me and said, "Thank you, Blake, for doing this." I had a couple come up to me at HempX Asheville, a festival I started, that says, they were crying, that said, "Thank you, my child has never had access to CBD, but we didn't even know how to get it because we thought that it was illegal, we thought the DEA would chase us." But the most important thing is making that educational piece accessible. Everything I've done, the 4 festivals I've done, have all been free. Because it's good PR to get out the right information. And if you want to talk about a challenging PR campaign, try to go out there and push the cousin to marijuana as a safe alternate to the future. But it really is, folks, in the sense that now that we have formed the Industrial Hemp Commission, now that we have NC State and North Carolina A&T on board, now that we have 250 farmers that want to apply to grow industrial hemp, what you're going to see is the communities that need it the most are getting the help they deserve, because tobacco is gone, cotton is gone, soybeans too competitive, there is family farmland all over the place, and there is no hope because there's no solutions. So in this wonderful vision I have in industrial hemp, just one textile mill that fires up in Rutherford County and starts creating a clothing line off industrial hemp, and the farmer that grows that hemp is 10 miles down the street in Cliffside. That little example is something I hold on to because it's important to recognize in public relations that people want to feel part of something, be vested in your message, in your movement, and never forget that. It's not a one-off thing. You want to keep them engaged. So again, tricky, because the best PR campaigns are organic and unplanned. But like the Vaya Health example, the CEO just stared at me when I said, "I want you to do 22 push-ups on the conference room table in the middle of a meeting." But that video worked because what we realized is those people in his company didn't feel like they were on the same level as he did. But they all took up this cause together, and it became the most wonderful PR campaign for Vaya Health during the holidays. You go to their website right now, know the signs, it's right there. You can click on it, go to the whole list, turn on WWNC. We're supporting it through a radio campaign. We want folks to know, if you have a relative that looks like they're having problems, to have a place to reach out. So, that's about all I was going to talk about. I have much more. Believe me, I have much more. But if anybody has any questions, I mean, if we got a few minutes, I'd love to take them. Yes?
Okay, I'm going to speak loud in case people, or hopefully people can hear. Several months ago, Sandy Reese, who's an outstanding consultant from Knoxville, came over here and spoke to us on the topic of fundraisers being introverts. Mm-hmm. We have a typical split in our profession between introverts and extroverts. How do you think being an introvert would work in terms of your PR message?
Wow, that is, you know, I think that, you know, in PR, again, it doesn't have to necessarily be a face-to-face thing. Everything I just described to you happened organically with the help of the penetration of social media, as we know, which is a new animal in itself. But I kind of worked with an introvert at one time, and he set appointments, and I went out and closed them. We worked as a team that way. He loved to make phone calls. You know, he'd set appointments, but I could go out there and go to face-to-face and close them. So, but I would see, again, there is challenges because ultimately someone's got to be that person, that presence that's there. So, but working as a team, maybe, finding out how to work with someone else might be a good strategy.
Well, what you said twice that got my attention was find the personality.
Right.
You may find them anywhere in your organization, but often you can use those personalities as an introvert and direct them.
You definitely can. And again, as we talk about that, please know that as a PR professional, I am really big on short videos now. 20 seconds or less, but these videos got to mean something. You know, they got to have a little bit of substance in there that people want to share them. So I'm really big on using even introverts. Like I said, the CEO is very quiet, but once we got him out there doing push-ups, it just brought him to life. Man, he's cool. He's one of us. He never returns my phone calls, but he's cool. Yeah. Yes.
I was just at another AFP conference, and the speaker has just done some research, but it's all about, he called the snack-sized message. I mean, we still think when you do big paragraphs and all that stuff, it's all about this, you know, snacks. And
It is.
Small pieces of information like you're talking about, and with a link to a deeper conversation. We want a deeper conversation, and
Right.
that our donors also only want it in little tiny chunks and irregularly, as opposed to a regular email or whatever e-blast. Because then, if it's regular, they say, "Oh, I'll look at it later." But if it's irregular, it might be something important or new, and so to keep it funky.
I totally agree. And remember, with PR and with fundraising, you can nurture that relationship. And we tell, you know, a few organizations we work with, instead of sending out an email that says, hey, we need this much by the end of the year so we can do this and this and this and this, that can sometimes be a one-off thing. And then people don't give again. As you all know, so much better to say, hey, we're trying to get, you know, 200 people to give us $10 for the next 6 months so we can begin to build our programs. We're going through ups and downs like anybody else, but we want to keep you involved and tell you the good and the bad because you're part of our organization. You're vested in our message. You're a stakeholder. Well, if someone calls up and says, man, that's really bad. You guys got barely, you don't have any money. You're not going to survive. And says, yes, but we have hope because we have you and we have the right message and we can make it work. So instead of scaring everybody to death, we want you to become vested as we move forward, month by month, week by week. So we're big on that too. Little, like you said, small stacks of communication that make the difference. One more thing, my biggest thing in the industrial hemp thing, when people would engage me and try to tell me I was, you know, trying to legalize drugs, I would say, you don't smoke hemp. And people would look at me for a second and says, I don't understand. And I would say a hemp seed starts off with 0.03% THC or less. So if you try to smoke industrial hemp, you're gonna vomit. Sir.
One thing, apparently George Washington grew hemp on Mount Vernon
Yes, he
for
did.
the purposes of what you were talking about, clothing, etc.
You could pay taxes in hemp back then.
Yes, you could.
Yeah.
But the question I had was the young man who jumped into the pot, number 21 for the Dow. Did he perhaps have family who were bell ringers for the Salvation Army?
You know, he claims he had no association whatsoever. He just looked at that pot in a way, this is the pinnacle of my career as I'm a rookie. And you know, if you watch the video, he jumps down the pot and hides and puts his head up and then goes back down. Watch it tonight, it's beautiful, because even the announcers are saying, was that planned? Was that, I mean, he jumped in and surely he's gonna get fined. And so they were talking about the fine and then they got penalized. But somehow in all that, people saw the Salvation Army brand and the pot. Oh yeah, that pot that I see outside of Walmart, that pot I see outside of Ingles, and then they went online that night and gave $21. I think he said 1,400 people gave in the first 10 minutes. I mean, it's an interesting case study, but you know, and I think that you look at it like those happen few and far between.
It sounds like what you're describing is a creative awareness event, it always is better if it's an impulsive thing and it just goes, you know, the tipping point, it goes viral and everybody gets on board. But I've seen it where it can be planned. It has to be very thoughtful and very creative. I worked for the American Diabetes Association in the state of North Carolina years ago, and we had an event called the Kiss a Pig contest. It's an insulin that is provided by the pig is part of the connection. There's the creative awareness.
Right.
And so we started this campaign. We had each of the CEOs at the major corporations around the Rocky Mountain, North Carolina area be willing to step up and make themselves vulnerable, be willing to kiss a pig in a contest.
I love it.
Which means you get one vote for every $1 raised by your employees who want to see their boss kiss a pig. And so now there's corporation against corporation. You've got teams and so forth. And at the end, you know, we have a picture on the front of the page newspaper of a big 500-pound sow with a big bow around its neck. And in fact, it was kind of interesting. The corporation that won was Consolidated Diesel. Their CEO was this big NFL retired football player, linebacker, and they saw this big sow on the front page, and everybody wanted to be there. They were contributing dollars. They wanted to see that happen. Well, it was a surprise to him when we brought out this little piglet, and he had to kiss a little pig. Made it even better, you know. So it can be orchestrated and not nearly as impactful, I think, as an impulsive and something that happens spontaneous. But
I agree. I think again you hit on something real important, that if it's properly planned and strategically planned in a way that you get people across the board involved, it again seems very genuine.
It raised a lot of money.
Yeah, it can definitely work. And there's a lot of ideas, I'm sure, in this room right now that you guys are thinking about. Could I, you know, kind of form this to create a fundraising opportunity or a new revenue stream? The answer is usually yes. You just got to figure out how to get there. That's the biggest challenge. Because, you know, I've failed at plenty of campaigns and other things. And like I said, I've been thrown out of bankers' offices. And, you know, I was trying to raise money for Democratic politicians. But at the same time, all that shaped me in a way that I would walk away going, I'm going to do that a little bit different next time. Because I opened it up in a way he could say no so fast that I gave him the chance to say no. You know? Wilson Sims knows this very well. When I moved back to Asheville from Raleigh, Wilson was one of the first people I saw, and I said, I'm thinking about going into fundraising. And he says, you really shouldn't. but I did. We actually worked together and raised some money for some homeless shelters and a few other things because it was in my blood. And even though I didn't do it and I went into web design, it was still in my blood. I wanted to help. So immediately I tapped into Wilson and says, what can I do? How can I help? Tell me about what you guys do here. Because I still want to raise money. You don't have to pay me. Just let me ask somebody. And I mean, it really is in my blood like that. Anybody else? Any other questions? So in closing, I'll say this. We are, as a PR firm, are always here to have lunch, to discuss anything. Every year we take on a pro bono project. For the last 2 years, we've done the American Red Cross. This year, we have really embedded ourselves in the Asheville Museum of Science. We believe as a firm, and there's only two of us, the two of us believe that we're really lacking family-friendly attractions in downtown Asheville. I watch families walk around after they leave breweries and they're not sure what to do next. So we all came together and worked hard to transfer that Colburn Gym and Middle Museum and create a museum of science, something that has made the difference in Charlotte as Discovery Place and so many other cities. So knowing all that, if you guys have some good ideas, you'd like to take us out to lunch, we like to eat, and we'll give you our advice in kind. It's that important, and I hear the different organizations, and I already have relationships with folks in here like Debbie and Amanda and others and Kathy. You know, just any way that we can help make this a better community, we will be engaged and we will be involved. And you know I say that sincerely because, as you can ask my wife, I definitely spend more time trying to figure out how to help others. It's just important to me being a native from Asheville, but most importantly, in this room, we are the people that ask for support. And there's going to be a lot of introverts that never will, but we have to take on responsibility for the others. So, well, thank you so much. I hope this helped.
offer to talk through ideas. I can say in my time at the Red Cross, just sitting down with Blake and Jill and just talking through, I would leave with just lists of ideas of things that we did some of them, some we didn't, but hopefully laid a great groundwork for the new director at the Red Cross. Next month, I don't know the date of January 3rd, the third week, I should have looked in the calendar, Nancy Schwartz will be joining us. She is a communications consultant based in New York that Karen, the 18th, great. Karen Jaegerhofer introduced her to our chapter, and she's gonna come and speak about using your board and your volunteers as ambassadors to spread your message. So she's fantastic, and I look forward to seeing y'all back next year. Happy holidays.